Mr. Vonnegut, you're here in town this weekend to talk about the importance of reading and writing in today's world. It's always been a bit ironic to me when I interview a writer on television, because so many writers tell me, well, it's television is to blame for the decline in reading in America. Is TV the culprit?
Yeah, I think so, and it is it's just a machine, you know, and I think we had no idea what the hell it was going to do to us. And yeah, it has cut down on reading, and reading is a skilled thing to do. I mean, it's like ice skating or playing the French horn, and you really, it's hard to learn. As most people said, people who are literate, even if they've been to grad school, they've spent practically the whole time learning how to read and write. And it's the only art that requires skill on the part of the audience, is people have to read well.
It requires an involvement, a responsibility on the part of the reader.
But a skilled performance, it's almost like playing an instrument, except the instrument you're playing is your mind instead, starting with these little marks on paper. And so, yeah, TV, all you have to do is look at it, you know. And I have found, trying to stimulate a college audience to do something, you know, is to motivate them to go to do something, and they don't. It's just like one more TV show, you know, and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go out and buy that underarm deodorant if you don't want to, or whatever the TV is urging you to do. And speakers urging the audience to go do something. They don't take it seriously anymore because you don't have to do anything.
How do you encourage reading and writing? Do you suggest keep a journal? That used to be one of the #1 rules of a writer. You're going to keep a journal, and things will happen within that journal. But again, it's a relationship and a working relationship.
Yeah, but I think the value of a journal is simply that you write a lot, and it's just like, well, I mean, Mark Spitz spent his whole life in the swimming pool, right?
Right.
He's going up and down, and that's how come he can do it better than anybody else. And yeah, they'll say keep a journal, because that means you write every day. And in the generation before mine, American writers mostly came up through journalism and often hadn't even finished high school, as Mark Twain or Ring Lardner or any of those people. They'd come up through newspapers, and if you work on a newspaper, you write 3, 4, 5, 6 stories a day about anything, you know, and you're writing and you're writing and you're writing, and your mind is saying, okay, I guess this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do a lot of it, and so you get skilled that way. And this wonderful high school I went to, Shortridge, we had a daily paper. It had a daily paper so long that my parents had worked on the Shortridge Daily Echo before I had. And so a whole lot of writers came out of Shortridge. Head writer on the I Love Lucy show, a woman named Madeline Pugh. I knew her when she was a student. Dan Wakefield, my brother, novelist and journalist, came out of there. And a hell of a lot of editors and writers for, you know, trade journals or down on that level came out of Shortridge, and they could write because Shortridge had them writing all the time. That's the main thing.
So what did Shortridge do right? So many impressive people have come out of Shortridge over the years. What lesson could people learn today from the Shortridge model?
To honor the teachers as leading members of the community rather than servants like firemen or policemen, and the very high morale operation, and their salaries weren't high there at Shortridge. The Great Depression was going on, but the people were so proud, and they were so well educated themselves. And during the Depression, any steady job was a plum job, and so wonderfully educated people with master's degrees or doctor's degrees would consider themselves pretty lucky to be teaching in a high school.
Okay.
But they really knew their subjects, and
did they know how to inflame the mind of the young person to make them interested in that?
Well, the whole school did, and so if there was a teacher who knew his subject or her subject, who had kind of a dud personality, you know, the high energy of the school carried you along anyway, as you were glad to get the information anyway. But my brother, for instance, went to park school, but he bicycled into Shortridge every day to study chemistry under Frank Wade, who was not just there's nothing ordinary about the man. The man was an extraordinary chemist, and such people are no longer encouraged to go into education. And I think there's a strong anti-intellectual strain in the United States, as you know, the pointy-headed intellectuals scorning these people who know a lot of science or whatever.
It's not going to get a young person a date on a Saturday night.
No. And, I think the Japanese are very pleased to have
with
us,
our attitude about that.
They're very pleased to have us so little interested in activities of the mind. I'm talking about the general public. But at Shortridge, as great a school as it was, the athletes, the lettermen, looked on the rest of us as though we were all wimps and fairies, of course. And the model is Greek, because great athletes used to, help win the Battle of Thermopylae or whatever, because those battles were hand-to-hand, and a really strong guy. And then the great runner who ran all the way back to Athens to say that the battle had been won and then dropped dead and all that. His bodies really mattered. But I think the Japanese are delighted to see us building these sports training centers and concentrating on winning gold medals, because I didn't know what's going on at all. Well, you just be stubborn and speak against it, as I do, and praise activities of the mind, because
just stick to your guns.
Yeah, on our great victory in the Gulf, blowing the bejesus out of this third world country that hardly shot back, as killing all those kids, as that's what they were. You didn't dare say a word against it, because Dan Rather thought it was all right. Peter Jennings surprisingly agreed with him. CNN agreed with them. McNeil and Lehrer looked into it, and this was all pretty good. And then they took a poll, and 87% of the American people thought this was pretty good. And, it was such a tragic thing. It's always tragic when you kill a whole lot of people. It's not fun. It's tragic. And, but, in a restaurant, talking to somebody else about this, I had to be very careful, because people around you could hear, And
what is that balance between, like, the democratic principle? Well, America was behind it, so in some way it was justified, and then the vote, the wants of the minority or whatever, those few people that may have been against it are sitting there and talking very, very, very quietly. They don't want it known to the general population that they are not.
But the CBS, NBC, CNN, PBS News, McNeil Lehrer, and all that are all at one with the government. It's one big ball of wax. They always agree with the president. They won't criticize him. They wouldn't criticize Reagan no matter what he said, no matter how absurd it was. And so you don't really need any censorship. We're
doing it ourselves.
Yeah, well, we're all getting our news from one source, and the journals who do some reporting about what's really going on, about the rascals who cleaned out the savings banks or whatever. I catch hell for being a bad American, is criticizing the government and everything. Nobody criticizes the guys who, got us to buy the damn black boomerang. What is it? It's supposedly invisible. Turns out to be not invisible. Billions of dollars. No, they're good Americans. The guys who cleaned out the insurance company and the savings banks, they're just businessmen. They're good Americans. There's only bad Americans are people who say, hey, these guys are robbing us blind. And our school system's falling apart and all that.
So you see little evidence that America's a kinder and gentler nation?
No. because they're getting information all from one source, which is essentially the White House.
Now, your books about war and the absurdity and stupidity of war have been embraced by a generation of youth who opposed the conflict in Vietnam. Do you feel you have the same relationship with the youth today that, let's say, you had 20 years ago?
I'm not interested in the youth. I don't write teenage fiction. I write grown-up fiction, and it is true that my books are taught in colleges and often in high school. No, but most of my mail is from people my age. As I'm not a writer, and people who try to lessen the impact of what I talk about as pacifism or whatever, or just mercifulness or compassion. That's what. Well, he's just a writer for kids. Well, I'm like hell. My mail is from college professors and ministers.
Were you surprised in any way that that youth generation did embrace you so wholly?
Well, it's nothing I looked for, and very few writers can write for a particular audience. It really is a free market, and each one of us has to bloom as, you know, if you're a tulip, is you damn well going to bloom as a tulip or a rose or whatever. And so then you see what the free market thinks of this, and, you know, and there have been a lot of people who liked what I've written, and so here I am in business, and that's all I do now because I've sold books in that quantity. But it is a genuinely free market.
Can you argue the free market, though, supports things like the war in the Persian Gulf?
Well, no, this is the only free market there is. The artists are the only people who operate in a free market, as everybody else has special favors and deals from the government, subsidies and big whacks of money and special laws and all that. And what most businessmen are complaining about is the free market. You know, is you can't send us out there and just leave it up to the customer. But that's what artists have to do. It's interesting. The guy who has been showing me around here, who is working with the Indiana Humanities Council, I guess it's called. His name is David Hoppy.
Right, we've talked with him. We've had him in here before and talked.
Well, he's worth a trip because we've been driving around talking about one thing or another, and he talked about Americans' feelings about the arts, and you know how it's come out recently is you know, the outrage over certain exhibitions is what the Mapplethorpe pictures.
Right.
And he said that Americans are used to seeing art in advertisements, in a beautiful picture in an ad. That's to sell you something.
Right.
And the words underneath are to sell you something. And so when they see anything written or any picture, they assume it's trying to sell something.
Trying to sell you that idea.
Yeah. And so they look at the Mapplethorpe thing, and they say, this is an ad for buggery. You know? And it isn't.
And they're saying this is the way all of America should be, because we bought into that salesmanship.
Yeah, and they're not selling it to anybody. But the American, I'm not buying that, and my kids aren't going to buy it either. Nobody's trying to sell it to you. They're just trying to make you stand in relationship to this picture. It's just you in the picture, and let whatever happens between you. But it's not an ad campaign, you know. It's not like the Saturn is. The Saturns are coming out now,
right.
And there are going to be lots of ads for that, and people are going to say, well, I want a Saturn or I don't want it. But art isn't like that. And they would see my books as selling something.
Yes, I was just. What about your own experiences with school boards that would not have some of your work in the school?
I'm not selling anything. I'm just creating a work of art to which you respond. It is not a sales pitch to which you are supposed to say yes or no.
How do you characterize the moral consciousness of America today?
Well, we used to be a merciful people. We used to be a humane people. The great generals during the Second World War, Omar Bradley, George Marshall, Dwight Eisenhower, their faces showed that war was a tragedy. And it is a tragedy. They're killing our young people. We're killing other people's young people.
Young people.
And there was the one nut we had in that war is George Patton, who really seemed to enjoy it. But even he spoke of the courage of the German soldiers he was killing and saying they were good men, you know, and they were worthy adversaries. And now it's just fun.
You really think so? You really think that?
Well,
that we
no,
have that?
CNN does.
No, I think you think that that is this what is trying to be sold to.
No, and now it's just fun.
You really think so? You really think that?
Well,
that we
no,
have that?
CNN does.
No, I think you think that that is this what is trying to be sold to America.
Well, look at how happy General Schwarzkopf is, and no tragedy on his face, no sense of tragedy. Look at tragedy. Look at Abraham Lincoln mourning all who died at Gettysburg during the Spanish-American War, which was a jingoistic war. It was America's most jingoistic. But when the cruiser Texas set the Spanish cruiser, I guess it was a cruiser too, the Vizcaya, on fire in the Battle of Santiago Bay and down in Cuba, the crew started cheering, and the skipper said, "Don't cheer, lads, the poor devils are dying." Now that's all over with. Now it's all just a hell of a lot of fun, even if you bulldoze them underground. Because, you know, they're hiding underground, and just send bulldozers over and suffocate them under there. And these are kids. And what I said last night, I spoke at the Indiana Roof there at a word-struck party, and I said, I'm a Hoosier, still talk like a Hoosier, and I'm a Shortreach High School person. And I'll tell you, a purely Shortreach, purely Indianapolis, purely Hoosier reaction to our great victory in the Gulf is I saw pictures of these Iraqi kids with their hands up, you know, their heads ringing with this terrible shelling they'd taken, thirsty, hungry. Well, I was in exactly that same condition during the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans had superior technology, much better weapons, and we were just kids, and we wound up, they sent the best they had, everything they had, the best tanks, everything, unexpectedly. And so I was ragged, I was hungry, I had seen a lot of people die, and I had the hell shelled out of us, and I was just a kid. And when it was all over, there were Americans like this, as far as the eye could see, kids, dazed, disarmed. And so when I saw pictures of those Iraqi kids like this, is my Hoosier response, my Shortreach response was, there are my brothers. Now, when my generation went to war, we had two fears, equal. One, we might get killed. Two, we might have to kill somebody. Equally terrible, a terrible thing to kill somebody. Not anymore, it's whoopee. And I think that, again, as television is just a machine, we didn't know what the hell it was going to do to us. But I think that in order to hold our attention, it has showed us killings again and again and again. And, you know, they're prevented from showing pornography, which would hold our attention the same way. But in order for us in order to make sure we keep on watching and don't go do something else, it'll kill people on camera.
Well, the comic Lenny Bruce was surprised that pictures of people making love was obscene, but a news footage of some war was not obscene and was readily digested by the American public.
Yeah. Well, but I don't recommend it. See, they would turn this upside down and say that Vonnegut said we ought to show pornography on TV. And actually, I'm in a spot because I'm a First Amendment absolutist. I don't think there's any way we can prevent anybody from showing anything without empowering the government to decide what should be shown and what shouldn't. And so no, the First Amendment is a tragic amendment, a sickening amendment. There's all kinds of things are said and shown that I can't stand. And yet I realize that I can't shut off the violence. I can't shut off any of that. Although it's making us sick.
Now, your books have made many people laugh while,
Well,
while at the same time reflecting on some of this sickness.
Well, I would hope so, but laughter and sobbing are physiologically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens if you see something alarming, even though it's fiction, your body will respond and it'll get you to fight or to run. And in real life, as you will face problems that can't be solved immediately, and your body will say, all right, either we're going to fight or run.
Yeah.
And so you're stuck with all this adrenaline and who knows what else. And the way you get rid of it is expel air through your lungs, carrying some of this out. You can do this either laughing or crying. But laughter is just like crying very often. It's a response to frustration. And I say I prefer laughter to tears because there's less cleaning up to do afterwards. You can get on with life that much sooner and try to really deal with the problem.
Now, the way some people have dealt with these problems over the years has been through suicide, the final exit. Your mother committed suicide. I've read reports that you've had your own brush with that attempt towards that.
Well, see, there's a strong reason not to commit suicide because you leave that as a legacy to those who survive you, particularly your children, because it will seem like, particularly if a parent does it, it'll seem like one way to solve problems, and there's no question about it. It really takes care of everything, takes care of the mortgage, any bills you may owe, at
least for that one person
who's burned up at you. It really, and so you do think of, if you have been close to a suicide, particularly of a parent, whenever you have to solve a problem, you will think of suicide as, as to hell with it. And I've said in one book, that I hate algebra, and I think everybody does. And so if the problem is, if farmer A can sow 3/4 of an acre of potatoes in 3 hours and 15 minutes, and farmer B
okay,
and everything, my answer to the problem is I'm going to blow my brains out because I don't care. But then, rather than solve the problem, just to go to sleep forever is so appealing.
Is it appealing to you?
Oh, I like sleep, don't you?
I like sleep. I like waking up.
Yeah. Well, the fact that I don't. Have you ever been close to somebody who was a suicide?
My great-grandfather hung himself out in the barn.
Oh boy, that is flashy, and
at 80 or 90 years old.
Well, and that is famous for a way of punishing others too. There's some ways you can take yourself. Well, come on, we don't want to encourage people to do this.
No, we are not encouraging people.
You're
with these
dependent
different ways,
on
but it's
viewer support, right? And if we start telling all your viewers to kill themselves, station's out of business.
But for someone that's been able to laugh the way you do and reflect upon some of these ills with laughter.
I laugh at the wrong time all the time. It's my response to grief, and a lot of people hate that, and they say, be serious, and I am being serious.
But then when you contemplate suicide, that is about as serious as it can get.
I think as serious as it can get is contemplating the death of somebody else. And the fact that we were able to do that so easily and without any qualms to all those kids in Iraq.
So
something's
when
wrong
you
with
have
us.
contemplated this, how you're not going to do this,
What,
are you?
kill myself?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I hope not.
Well, come on. One thing that's perfectly marvelous about the United States is we're the only country in history to actually try to do something about racism and to see if we can all get along together and see whether we can't see each other, regardless of skin color or religion or whatever, as worthy human beings. And no other country even considered this possible. We've had amazing success just in my lifetime, is the decline in racism in this country. And, in the treatment of Jews, treatment of blacks, and now there are politicians who see political capital in saying, hey, really, this is a white man's country when all is said and done. And George Bush is the first presidential candidate in my lifetime to win on a racist campaign. I was born in 1922, and with that Willie Horton business. You can imagine if he'd done that with an Irishman?
No.
Or with a Jew?
No.
Or with a German? No, but he's going to protect us from the black people. And I think things are quite bad. What George Santayana said, in effect, that those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. That's a paraphrase of what he said. And I think whether you know history or not, you're doomed to repeat it. And what is going on now is this country has gone bust. The banks are cleaned out. So insurance companies are cleaned out by crooks. And so our spirit is all down, and we are now doing what Mussolini did when Italy was in the same condition. Is Americans can stand tall again. Italians could stand tall again because they went and attacked Ethiopia, for God's sake. The Ethiopians, all they had was spears.
So what's going to force America to look at itself?
Nothing. Nothing. That's why I say that Santayana said, he said, if you know history, maybe you won't have to repeat it. I think we're doomed to repeat it. And people say, you're a pessimist. Well, this isn't a spiritual matter. Why can't you be cheerful like somebody else who's always cheerful? Well, the news is too terrible now, and I pay attention to it. But for instance, New York City, where I lived a long time, it's going to turn into a Calcutta in a big hurry because they haven't repaired the bridges, they haven't repaired the sewers, they haven't repaired the water supply, and all that. And now there isn't enough money to do that. I mean, Koch was saying, how am I doing, and all that. And he knew nothing about engineering, didn't care about putting any money into any of these bridges that bring trade in and out of. So that's permanent. Last night, I'm very proud of my state because it used to be a highly literate state. And I went to the greatest high school in the history of high schools and all that. And this town had lots of music, lots of books, lots of the arts. And my God, I go to find out last night that my state, Indiana, a wealthy state with a great cultural underpinning from the past, is third from the bottom on SATs. It's third from the bottom. Well, that's too late to fix. It's like the Williamsburg Bridge and like Brooklyn Bridge and like the Holland Tunnel and all that. It's too late to fix.
But still, we got to try to fix it.
Yes, we got to try to fix it, but it's like turning around a tanker. It's going to take.
Which we've seen examples of here recently in history.
But it takes a long time to turn a ship like that. And right now we are third from the bottom in SATs, which indicate that we don't have a high degree of literacy. It's Arkansas and Mississippi who are below us. Can you imagine? And so how the hell did that happen? But anyway, we are turning out. All these students, I mean, they're coming out of the schools, whether the schools are any good or not, and they're not going to be able to read very well, apparently, if they do that badly on the exams. And they're all going to have to be taken care of anyway. What happened, in Prince County, Virginia, I guess it is where Falwell has his headquarters. I think that's Lynchburg. But anyway, when they were told to integrate, they closed down the public school system entirely and set up a whole bunch of private academies. And so they have a lost generation down there of black kids who can't read and write, who can't do math, and they're there. And apparently I would think be a huge drag on the economy. But sure, we could straighten things out in 100 years, I guess. But I'm pessimistic just because the news is so awful, and you catch hell for noticing
For
saying the
noticing that
news.
maybe something's
Yeah.
not right in
But
Denmark.
third from the bottom in this marvelous state. Oh, how the hell did it happen?
So, with all this we've been talking about, what makes you feel that life is worthwhile, and what makes you happy? What?
Well, I lots of things, because I'm fine. I'm prosperous. I live well, and so do my friends. And what I'm a beneficiary of Indianapolis is when I came through, it was a swell public school system. All I had to do was buy my notebooks and my pencils, and I got this wonderful free education here. I assume that's what kind of country I was born into, that everybody got this kind of free education. So here I am. I got a swell suit. I got a nice house. I got a good car and all that, and I'm as literate as you can be. So I'm okay. What makes me happy is lots of things do, and there's much happiness in my life, but I think my country's in a hell of a shape, and I was startled to find out my state was.